Have you ever wondered why some people are impossible to manipulate? Why they stay calm while everyone else is panicking? Or why they can say no without a hint of guilt? It's not a superpower, it's emotional independence. Today, we're breaking down the psychology of the unshakable person. Some people move through life with a kind of psychological steadiness. They're not easily shamed, not easily pressured, and they don't get pulled into emotional outbursts without awareness. They tend to recognize unhealthy influence quickly and notice inconsistencies in behavior. Because of that awareness, they're generally more difficult to sway. In psychology, this is often described as emotional independence, the ability to remain centered even when someone attempts to draw you into emotional turbulence. It doesn't mean a person is unemotional or detached. It means they can experience emotions without being controlled by them. Emotional independence does not mean avoiding vulnerability or connection. It grows through relationships, not in isolation. So, what exactly creates this inner fortress? Here are the fundamental traits of an emotionally resilient mind. Trait number 1, independent thinking. Emotionally resilient people don't automatically follow the crowd. Their decisions are guided more by reasoning and personal values than by social pressure. Research in behavioral psychology suggests that individuals who resist unhealthy influence often have a strong internal reference point, a relatively stable sense of identity and values, even when facing external expectations. Social pressure frequently relies on comparison. Everyone's doing it, or you're the only one who thinks that way. But those tactics lose strength when someone has examined their beliefs carefully and chosen them consciously. They don't rely on group approval to feel secure in their decisions. Think about a time everyone at work, or in your friend group, agreed with a bad idea just to avoid conflict. An emotionally independent person is the one who calmly says, "I don't think that's right for me." They don't need the crowd's permission to stand their ground. Trait number 2, the power of why. Ask yourself, when someone puts pressure on you, is your first instinct to defend yourself or to ask a question? Another trait is the habit of questioning narratives calmly. Unhealthy dynamics rarely respond well to thoughtful questions, especially why. Emotionally aware individuals don't accept claims at face value. They explore them respectfully. Why would I be responsible for that? What evidence supports this? This isn't argument for the sake of conflict. It's discernment. Research on critical thinking indicates that it can reduce susceptibility to undue influence. Rather than stopping at the first plausible explanation, they look for consistency between words and actions. When something feels off, they examine it instead of ignoring it. This next one is perhaps the most important defense mechanism you can learn. Trait number 3, the strategic pause. Pressure relies on speed. Clarity relies on space. They also pause before reacting. Many pressure-based tactics rely on speed, triggering emotion before reflection has time to engage. Emotionally grounded people create space between what happens and how they respond. Even a brief pause can reduce impulsive reactions. They may use simple regulation tools such as slow breathing, mentally naming the emotion they're experiencing, or refocusing attention on the present moment. Studies on emotional regulation suggest that when responses become intentional rather than automatic, interpersonal dynamics often shift. Calm in this sense is not passivity, it is clarity. Clear boundaries are another protective factor. People who are less vulnerable to unhealthy influence communicate expectations early. Respect is not assumed, it is expressed. They can say no without excessive guilt or long explanations. They understand that kindness does not equal obligation. Psychological research links chronic obligation with resentment and burnout. So when pressure appears in the form of, "if you cared," or "you owe me," they evaluate it instead of absorbing it automatically. If a boundary is crossed, they address it directly, and if necessary, they step back. Remember, boundaries aren't walls built to keep people out. They are gates that you control to keep your inner peace in. It's not about being mean, it's about being honest. They also tend not to rely heavily on external validation. Compliments do not override their judgment, and approval does not define their self-worth. Research on self-determination and self-dependency suggests that when self-worth is internally anchored, praise and withdrawal lose much of their influence. This does not mean they reject connection or appreciation. It means their identity is not built entirely on external feedback. Another important pattern is that they evaluate behavior over time, rather than promises in the moment. Anyone can say the right words, but consistent actions provide clearer information. Emotionally intelligent individuals pay attention to how someone behaves under stress, correction, disagreement, or disappointment. Research on intermittent reinforcement shows that cycles of apology followed by repeated harmful behavior can create confusion and emotional attachment. More grounded individuals tend to look at the broader pattern before deciding what to trust. An apology may matter, but lasting change matters more. They may also use silence thoughtfully. Silence is not necessarily avoidance, it can be observation. When they pause, they notice who respects boundaries, who escalates, and who becomes defensive. Psychological distance often helps people evaluate situations with less emotional distortion. Reducing emotional noise can make intentions and patterns clearer. No one is completely immune to influence. However, people who understand themselves, regulate their emotions, question narratives, and maintain boundaries tend to recognize unhealthy pressure sooner. They are not cold or superior, they are aware and intentional. These skills are learnable with practice. Real strength is not about controlling others. It is about staying aligned with your values and not abandoning yourself under pressure. When you understand your emotions, recognize patterns, and protect your boundaries, your reactions become choices rather than reflexes. That steadiness does not make you guarded, it makes you conscious. Emotional independence is a skill, not a personality trait. It's something you can build, starting today. Which of these traits do you find the hardest to practice? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you're looking to build a more intentional, conscious life, hit the subscribe button. Let's keep this conversation going.